Hello, this is Paul Pharma. We're here again on LinkedIn Live. I'm just going to give it a minute, 2 minutes, so that people can join the LinkedIn Live before we start. Just a quick background. My name's Paul Pharma, Paul R. Pharma, Dr. Paul R. Pharma. I've been in the pharmaceutical industry now for 40 years, 4 decades in the pharma industry. But I still remember when I joined. It's strange that the different activities, the different things that happen are the ones that you remember. Even after 40 years, I can remember when I joined the pharmaceutical industry. But now I'm here to tell you about some of the things that happen as I've joined. But before we do, let's give you a little bit of background. So I started off in microbiology. I then moved into QC, QA, spent some time working closely with production. Started with medical devices and medicinal products. And then moved more, I suppose, more niche really, into the pharmaceutical industry. Realized that the best thing that for me would be to become a qualified person. That was my choice, I suppose. And continue from there. So, hopefully everybody's now joined. I'm going to give you another 10 seconds for the last few people to join. Been on a QP now I've been a QP now since 2004. And I'm still named on a license. I haven't moved off. I've been auditing since 97. Okay, now that everybody's joined, today we're going to talk about the first job in the pharmaceutical industry. This is an unusual topic, which I don't really talk about to people very much. I'm usually talking to people that are already within the industry. So today, I'm talking a little bit more about what it is when you first join, what you need to do, how it works. Because honestly, joining the pharmaceutical industry is quite a niche to join. Before you start, you need to think about what people know, what people don't know from day one. When I first joined the pharmaceutical industry, I didn't really plan to stay. Not really. I got some the predicted grades in my A levels were low. I was predicted to get E's. But the problem then was money, because I didn't really want to pay for my university. I didn't want to come out of it with a massive bank loan. So instead, what I did, I decided I was going to get everything paid by my first job. And that's what I was going to do. I was just going to study while I was there. I was going to do my degree and then move on to something else, which at the time I didn't really know. But what people don't tell you when you first start the pharmaceutical industry is it's very specific. It's a strong niche, but also there's always opportunities. Firstly, welcome to the pharmaceutical industry. It's one of the most highly regulated industries in the world. And that's probably really because of the history behind it. When people originally died, the development of the good manufacturing practice was strong. But also joining the pharmaceutical industry, you get a lot of reward. I find it very rewarding because of the way we help patients. In theory, you find out about what to do in the labs. You find out how to deal with the opportunities for commercial growth. But when you do actually join the pharmaceutical industry, you'll find actual practice is very different to what you do within the university. That the processes themselves are very strong focus. There's a very very specific niche. And for me, that's primarily because you're producing products for patients to take. You have responsibility of making sure it's safe, making sure that they're actually gonna recover, that the products that you produce are gonna make they're gonna treat them, make them better. And often you'll find that it's quite overwhelming because there's so much to learn. Even while I was there with a company already, I think how long into it? I was 14 years in. And I joined a new company and they had over 140 SOPs to go through, to train, to learn before I did something else. But being presented with a wide range of things to learn is normal. Because you have to go there and you have to learn about what's in the process, what's in the procedures. So I intentionally joined different companies to get a wider understanding, a wider growth in the pharmaceutical industry. But GMP is not just another procedure. Good manufacturing practice is the foundation of the entire industry throughout the world. But it's developed based on what's happened, based on how things have become more controlled, to make sure what's actually being supplied is safe to the patients. It governs how medicines are made, tested, released, and applies to everybody. Now, this is something that's often people don't realize. You might join the pharmaceutical industry in development, new product development, and you find that you work in the laboratory trying to research something new. But then when the product goes from development into the live environment to be manufactured and actually treat patients, then you have to think about what controls are in place. What does good manufacturing practice mean? But more importantly, when does it apply? So often people think, oh, well, we're just developing something new, so we don't have to think about good manufacturing practice. But if you're not following good practice, best practices, and then you go to the regulators and you say, oh, well, this is the new product and we need a new license for this to place this on the market. But if you've not got the right controls in place, you're not manufacturing consistently, you're not doing the right documentation, you don't have the right quality embedded into your processes, then you're going to struggle to place it on the market. And that's something that people, before they actually join the pharmaceutical industry, don't know. The documentation becomes part of your life. If it's not written down, well, what does the FDA say? If it's not written down, it's a rumor. Okay, the work's not verifiable. You've not got the evidence that you've done what you're supposed to say. Accuracy. How do you know it's accurate? Well, good documentation practices demand precision. But you'll often find that people rush to do things, that a correction is made without putting a line through, doing the initials. They don't follow good documentation practices. That's always going to cause problems when you come to have an inspection. Inspections may be planned, but they can come unannounced as well. I remember my first unannounced inspection. Now then, when was it? Back in 2012, 13, I think it was. And the MHRA came for an unannounced inspection. They'd already been recently for an audit. We'd moved to a new site. And they came then they came to the door and says, here's my ID. And I said, well, I know who you are. You've just been previously. And they told me what they were there for. It was to investigate fraud. It was falsified medicines that were being presented that had come in from Europe. And we had to understand what was going on. Fortunately, what we'd been doing, we'd been understanding our suppliers. We've been focusing on what was needed, what we needed to place on the market. And we were looking at offers that were not normal. We were looking at the accuracy of what they were offering. It was a large amount of the highest strength when everybody else was telling us that was not available. We thought, well, that doesn't seem right. And we were verifying the supplier, and this didn't quite ring true compared with what we normally saw. So we decided to say no. And when the MHRA came in, did their unannounced inspection, we explained to them what had gone on. We showed them the evidence. We had the accuracy in the way that we'd been verifying our suppliers. And everything was fine. We actually helped them with the investigation. The records that we generated told them a story. The inspectors used the evidence that we had to go further. We gave them the retained samples that we purchased from a supplier that was following the rules, that was following good manufacturing practice, good distribution practice as well. They were placing product on the market that was not falsified, that it was a good product that had been placed on the market from the supplier, from the manufacturer. You have to be careful. You have to understand how products are placed on the market. You have to understand what the rules are today. Nobody expects you when you join to know everything. You have to ask the questions. Fastest learners are often those who ask the most questions. Yes, they'll go in and they'll read their SOPs. Most new starters are concerned about asking questions. They don't want to look stupid, but it's the only real reason. Your curiosity is the way that you're going to get there. The way that you're going to gain the understanding, that you're going to get the experience from your colleagues. You've got to be there, open to something new. You might have just finished your exams. You might have just finished your degree. But you need to be there ready to apply your knowledge. Because if you don't, you're never going to get there in the pharma industry. You need to be honest. You might think you know what you're talking about. You might think, yeah, I know all about that. But still listen first. The small misunderstandings that you might have, if they're ignored, can become a great problem later. Always be curious. Pretending to know something is much riskier, much more of a difficulty than admitting you didn't actually know. I remember somebody joining a company that I was with, and they hadn't actually done what they'd said. They'd got the job, but unfortunately, some of the things that they'd put on their CV were a bit not quite accurate. They didn't understand what was going on, and they were continuously asking questions. And I realized when I spoke to them that they didn't actually know, but they were really pretending they knew, and that was a problem. And they didn't stay. So be curious. Make sure you use what you know. Make sure that it's clear what you already understand, so that you can actually be there, understand and develop within the pharmaceutical industry. Because the pharmaceutical industry has its own language. This is one of the reasons people don't stay. But it's also the reason where there's lots of opportunities, because there's lots to learn. And those that haven't learned yet are never going to be a competitor in the jobs that are there, that are opportunities available. You want to learn what good manufacturing practice is about. You want to learn what corrective and preventative actions are, what they mean by SOPs, the QMS or the PQS, pharmaceutical quality system, out of specifications and good documentation practice. Now that's one where people sometimes get confused, because there's also good distribution practice. When you start your first week, you're going to get loads of acronyms to learn, but don't rush, don't panic. The terminology takes time. It's always going to take time. You're never going to remember it all in your first week. A glossary is a good way to go. If you've got a list that you can work from, then you can look it up when you're not sure about what somebody's asking you. Ask a colleague to explain the acronyms you hear, especially if it's more than a couple of times. Nobody's going to think less of you just because you needed something explained. Even now, I find that there's hundreds of acronyms within the industry that unfortunately in some countries mean one thing and in another country they mean something else. But more than that, a specific company might use an acronym in one way when somebody else uses it a different way. The key one that comes to mind straight away for me is GDP. GDP is good documentation practice. But in a warehouse, it's also good distribution practice. Now, how are you going to know which one's right? Well, it's context. So you have to be careful. The different acronyms might mean different things in different contexts. Then when we work together, different departments, they might not disagree with something. They're often pulling in different directions, equally legitimate directions. Unfortunately, different departments have different perspectives, and they often have different KPIs that they're working to. Production are focused on efficiency, delivery timelines, hitting manufacturing. Quality is focused on regulatory compliance and patient safety, while engineering focus on equipment reliability, maintenance, and operational continuity. But success in the pharmaceutical industry comes from working together, not going to just one of these sides, but them all working together as a whole. Audits and inspections are normal. You don't know when the next inspection is going to be. You might know that the next one's due in 3 years. But an unannounced inspection, like the one I talked about earlier on, can come anytime. Regulatory inspections are routine. Most employees feel anxious before their first one. But the mindset shift that helps this is inspectors are assessing understanding, not trying to catch people out. If you prepare continuously, always keep up to date, always work through the SOPs, always make sure you apply the knowledge every day, then you're going to be ready. But always make sure that what you document is written down in full. Make sure the signatures are where the signatures are supposed to be. Make sure that you follow Alcoa Plus, good documentation practice. Be honest and measure. Answer questions clearly and direct. If you don't know something, say something. Say so. Don't just say, oh, blah, 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 make it all up. That's not going to work. You need to make sure that the subject matter expert are the ones that answer the audit questions, the inspection questions. Trust your training. If you follow an SOP, document it correctly, and you've nothing to worry about during an inspection. And I know people worry, especially when they've not had an inspection before. But just get involved in the conversation. Listen first is really important. When you're new in the pharmaceutical industry, the first thing you always must do is listen. Your reputation starts on day one. Don't be the person that tries to give all the answers. Don't be the one that says, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to do that. When you're just starting, listen first. What defines you in pharma is the technical knowledge, reliability, attitude, relationships. Follow through on what you commit to. If somebody asks you to do a certain activity and they're doing it every day, do it every day. What you say, what you respond to, the feedback that you give, make sure you're consistent. But also listen. Get the feedback. When you do get feedback, think about it. Apply the new knowledge. They're giving you the development opportunity that you need to go further. So do it. Deal with it. Get better. Build bridges between departments. Your reputation is going to travel with you throughout your career, not just in the current company that you're in. Make sure that you deliver what's expected. For me, one of the most important things within the pharmaceutical industry is learning, continuous lifelong learning. But this partly is because the regulations change. If you think about good manufacturing practice, it changes when something goes wrong, when a patient is harmed, when the way that the standards move forwards, good manufacturing practice moves forwards. The regulations evolve. New technologies emerge. Imagine the first time you're in the pharmaceutical industry and you're manufacturing something and you're testing it on the line, taking the samples, and it's tablets. And the tablets are manufactured on the line, but the next day you move to the capsules. Well, the technology for capsules is completely different. And this is how things need to evolve. When there's new opportunities that come up, new opportunities to learn, you have to keep ahead. AI and digital systems are transforming how the pharmaceutical industry operates. Professionals who thrive are not those who knew the most on day one. They're the ones who stayed curious about their careers. Imagine the process that you're following has automation. It automatically adjusts the fill level for your capsule. It automatically gets the compression correct on your tablets. It automatically adjusts the speed because of the way that the blisters that are being manufactured on the line are being sealed. It adjusts the speed because of the measurements that are being produced. The way that the actual blister comes out of the other end is monitored closely. And you use your AI to feed back to the controls within your process, which mean that as it goes along, it gets the settings right, that it increases the speed, that it reduces the temperature, or the reverse. Maybe the run speed goes up or down. Patient safety is always going to be the thing that comes first. So as you use the AI, the automation and the digital systems, make sure when you're involved in validation that patient safety comes first. That the changes that you make bring out the best in the process, bring out the best in the systems. That the patient safety is always going to be the one that you think of first. When you join the pharmaceutical industry, you're doing something that's bigger than the job, but you will have a steep learning curve. It's a tremendous opportunity to grow, specialize, and lead. And there is a world impact every day. You're looking at the safety of the patients. Every expert in the pharmaceutical industry was once a nervous new starter on their first day. Every product you help make ultimately reaches a patient. You have to remember that. Remember, patient safety always comes first. It's always number one. Whatever the job is that you're doing, whatever you've learned in university, when you join the pharmaceutical industry, the patient comes first. Whatever the technical aspects you use, whatever it is when you're developing something new, any of the administration, you document everything, that you follow Alcoa Plus, that you contribute to someone's health and safety. The learning curve is steep, but the opportunity to grow, to contribute and make a genuine difference is huge. And that's what I like about it. That's why I've stayed there now for 40 years. Imagine 4 decades in the pharmaceutical industry. So that's it for today. Thank you for joining. I hope you found it useful. I know it's a bit shorter than previous lives. If you do have any questions, do make a comment or send me a message. Have a look at the Academy. We've got a number of courses there, academypharmaceuticalexcellence.com. Or you can send me an email, info@academypharmaceuticalexcellence.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Just do a search for Paul R. Pharma, or you can use the link that's on the screen. Also sharing the content that I'm recording on YouTube. You just have to look for youtube.com/Paul R. Pharma. I hope you found today's live useful, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.